Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from group 12. Can explain you about introduction of philosophy of language. Member of our group are me, Mawarni, Meng Kim Leng, and Pelsi Santika. Now, I want to explain you about first, next slide. Okay, in our topic, we have 6 elements. The first one is definition of philosophy. The second one is definition of language. The third one is definition of philosophy of language. The next, the scope of philosophy of language. Next, John Locke's theory, and the last one is conclusion. Okay, we start. The first one is about definition of philosophy. What is philosophy? Philosophy comes from the Greek language. It consists of 2 words. The first one is philo, that means love, and sophia means wisdom. So, we can conclude philosophy means knowledge that loves truth and wisdom. It includes the nature of universe, mind, and our body. Actually, the process of thinking of human is a dialogue with oneself in the mind by contemplating, considering, analyzing, expressing reasons, looking for cause and effect, and drawing conclusion about something that happened. Next slide, Chelsea. Okay, we continue about the characteristic of philosophy according to Sudarto, 1996. There are 8 characteristics of philosophy. The first one is radical. Radical comes from Latin word that is radix, which means root. So, the meaning of radical in the character of philosophy means fundamental, to the principle and down to the roots. And the second one is systematic. It condition, systematic means a series of ideas or main ideas which are then broken down into detail once, so that philosophy thought the patterns is arranged. It can be called not jumping around, relating to systematic and not randomly. The third one is rational. Rational means is reasonable and logical at compiled time, in concept and framework condition. It based on things that are general and logically related. The fourth one is universal. Thinking universal, it means thinking about things and processes in general. It related to common human experience. A philosopher, in looking for the definitive answer and conclusion using the method or a different path, but the goal is generality that is obtained from things that are in reality. The next one is conceptual. It means that the sense of philosophy is generalization and abstractions from experience about individual things and processes. The next one is coherent and consistent. In this case, coherent means according to the rules of thinking correct, connected, and logical. Besides, consistent is no contradicting opinion with another. The next is comprehensive. Comprehensive means broad, explaining the universe as a whole. It means that the system covers the whole, nothing whatever in outside. And the last one is free and responsible. Free means philosophy can think anything. You can say the philosophy is the product of free thought. And responsible is a person who think responsibility. The responsibility is by yourself and by the others. Okay, next slide, Kelsey. Okay, we come to benefits of studying philosophy. There are 4 benefits of studying philosophy. The first one is think logically. We always think logically and intelligently after we studying the philosophy. It will certainly help scientists to be able to think rationally and logically, so that every scientific method developed must be accountable. The second one is giving human awareness. Studying philosophy can help us to realize the nature of life as human being. In essence, we have a relationship with nature, other people, even God. And the third one is improve the way of thinking. By thinking carefully and critically, we can avoid to a solipsistic attitude or assume that this opinion is the most correct. So, by studying philosophy can make someone think intelligently, especially in scientists. The last one is expanding mindset. In this case, studying philosophy will make a person aware of his limitation. So a scientist will to engross in his own scientific work, so that sometimes he forgets the things around him. Next slide, Kelsey. Okay, the last part for me. Oh no. It's about definition of language. There are 2 definitions of language based on the first is Sapir, 1921. Language is a purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotion, and desires through voluntarily generated symbols. And the second one, according to Hall, language is the institution through which humans communicate and interact with one another using the arbitrary symbols of oral hearing that are commonly used. Based on 2 definition before, we can say that language is tool of communication. It means that a language has an important role in human life. By using a language, we can share a feeling, thought, ideas, and knowledge and information to others. In a communication, there must be a speaker, hearer, and message. As a speaker, we must speak clearly to make the hearer understand what we say and to avoid misunderstanding in our communication. On the other hand, language not only used in direct communication, such as conversation, speech, interview, but also used in printed media like magazine, newspaper, and so on. Next slide, Percy. Okay, the last part for me is about language function. According to Leach, there are 5 functions of language. The first one is expressive function. Expressive function means report feeling or attitudes of the speaker. It focuses on addresser, so that means a speaker addresses a message to the hearer. The second one is directive function. It means attempt by the speaker to the hearer to do something. By directive act, the speaker can express comments, order, request, and suggestion. The third one is informative function. The function used to give information from the speaker to the hearer. It means that language can apply both of spoken and written language that can be determined as a true or false. The fourth one is aesthetic function. Aesthetic function used to satisfy the sense through real or imaginary sounds, such as metaphor, rhymes, and all of which are often extremely difficult to translate. And the last one is pathetic function. The pathetic function used to keep communication lines open and keeping social relationship in great repair. It can be used for daily talk that can be seen when we meet our old friend and we can start to communicate with her or him, such as how do you do, where do you live, or how about your job. So a pathetic function used to start talking about something unimportant thing to start conversation. That's all for me, and next can explain by my friend. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, I will continue our presentation today. I am Dr. Santika as a second speaker from Philips Group. Okay, I will continue to explain about definitions of philosophy of language. There are 2 experts that define philosophy of language. The first in 2013 states that philosophy of language is a field in which philosophical questions about the structures of language, the meaning of terms and sentences, the relationship between language and the world, language and talk, language use and communications through language are discussed. And the second step, according by Kansa, 2016, he said that philosophy of language is a field where philosophical questions about the language being discussed. The concept of language, language abilities, and the language we speak are viewed philosophically. Based on 2 experts define philosophy of language, we can conclude that philosophy of language is a study that investigates about natures of language, the meaning of language, the origins of language, the relationship between language and the world, relationship between language and words, and relationship between language and talk, and how to use the language by speakers. Okay, next about the scopes of philosophy of language. There are 3 points in scopes of philosophy of language. And the first, talk. In general, the philosophy of language examines the relationship that humans establish between the words and their talk, regardless of the contents created by the means of language. The roles of language as a vehicle for talks allow human talks to be as complex and diverse as it. By language, humans could describe their past or predict their futures and make plans based on their belief. Language allows humans to imagine the events, contextual objects, and circumstances. The futures of all humans' minds outside of themselves. With language, humans can share information and communicate their beliefs, opinions, speculation, attitudes, and emotion. It's a second topic about communication. The human can communicate to each other by language and words about understanding. Language is an instrument of understanding the knowledge. The specialized language of mathematics and science, for example, how humans to build their theories and make predictions about some things that they couldn't fully understand about that. Okay, the next about basic terms in the philosophy of language by Bacon 2016. There are several basic terms in philosophy of language, and the first terms word and sentence formed with a combinations of words are important for philosophy of language. The sentences in a language are constructed according to a lexical structure. After a philosophical analysis of a sentence, they come with a part of the sentence that could is a term. For example, the hotel across the street is very popular. Based on the example, there are 2 terms. And the first, the hotel across the street, and the second term is very popular. And we know that the first term, the hotel across the street is a subject, and the second term is very popular is the predicate. Next about subjects and predicate. A subject is the part of the sentence that describes what or whom the sentence is about, while a predicate is telling what the subject is doing right now. For example, that the cat is eating a fish. Based on the example, we know that the cat is a subject and is eating of a fish is a predicate. That what the subject is doing, what we call the cat. And third one is about meaning. Meaning is what we comprehend, what we hear or read, a word or a sentence. When variety of a language considered, it is recognized that the same meaning is conveyed through the use of different words or sentences. For example, free and arbitrary. Based on the example, actually, free and arbitrary have a same meaning, but they convey in different words or in different form. And fourth one about concept. Concept is something general and is what makes us think and talk about many individuals think. To convey the place that I am sitting in as an office is to associate this place with the concept of office that we know about the example. The office is a place where we call it the concept of place. Another example is blood is red. Now, based on the example, blood is red is a claim to the referring to the concept of red. All things with a red color or the attribute of being red. It's about, based on the example, it's about everything that have a red color. Next about reference. Reference is the objects of persons or events or place referred to the use of the words. For example, Mrs. Smith is our teacher of philosophy. Based on the example, now Mrs. Smith is a person that I say before. The person is also called reference. So Mr. Smith is a reference as a person, and Mrs. Smith is a person that actually exists in the words and actually teaches a philosophy study in it. And next about intention and extension. Intentions is a logical conditions or definitions that determines the sets of all possible things that can be explained by a words or phrase, while extension is a set of all actual things described by a words or phrase. For example, in intentions of a car is the all-encompassing concept of car. In intentions, everything have named car is otherwise it's not actually exists in the word, but it's a car is example of intention. For example, including a mile-long car made from complete chocolates. The example is the intentions. Well, actually, a mile-long car made from chocolate is not exist in the words, and it's not actually car, but it's the chocolate made. It's a chocolate. Someone made a car by chocolates. For example, in an extension is the billionaire drive his Lamborghini. And Lamborghini, we know that Lamborghini is actual kinds of cars, and the car is actually exists in the words. And next about context. Context is a closely related with time and place. For example, when and where is the happen, or who is the speaker, who is the listener, on the other. For example, the President of America gave a speech at the White House. For example, the President of America that we know is a speaker. And the questions about who is the speaker, and the answer is the President of America. And the next questions, where is the President of America? The President of America is in the White House. And the last about third value. Third value is another concept considered in philosophy of language. The relationship between language and third value of a sentence can be seen like the relationship between language and words. The tradition's view of third value claims that the third values of a sentence is associated with its correspondence. The third value, for example, the word is round. Based on the example, we know that the sentence or the example is true, and it's have a true sentence because we know that the word is actually round shape, have a round shape, but it's someone say the word is flat is false. It's actually false because the word is not flat, but the word is round. Okay, I'm coming up from me. Thank you.
Okay, so will we move to number 5 is John Locke theory. So in John Locke theory, we have 6 points. So let's start with number 1. So in John Locke theory, he focused on more the nature of language. So you can see in number 1, the nature of language is defined by its function. So in this point, it also divides to two points. So the first one is eliciting certain feeling, and the second one conveying feeling. So these two expressive discourse in and of itself is best viewed as neither true or untrue. So for number 2, we have the function of language is to communicate. So in this point, language allows us to communicate our thoughts, feelings, and ideas with others. It has the ability to both develop and destroy the societies as well. So allow me to move on to number 3. What's language is meant to communicate its thought. So in this point come from a peculiarities of Locke's general understanding of communication, as last as it is understood within the context of the Lockean theory. So Locke's idea of communication is fundamentally individualist. For number 4, words represent or denote the element of what language is intended to communicate. About the points, this on the other hand, it is a bit of hard to understand, or we can say a bit hard to understand. Yes. or you can say complicated, because Locke undoubtedly believes that words and sign off and hence signify the component of thinking, and he is occasionally employ the concept of meaning instead. So it is apparent that Locke believes that words are symbol for the component of thought. For the number 5, this point is the components of thought and idea. The word idea as employed here is a technical phrase, and Locke made it clear that it is a technical by utilizing its very time he used it. It is difficult to know what is meant because it technical term without delving into Locke's philosophy, and this is not the place to do so. And what to do we believe thought are made out of. We can concrete of Locke idea as idea in the contemporary sense or concepts, whatever those terms mean, but we probably closer to Locke if we think of a Lockean idea as a kind of mental image. So whatever their nature, Locke was determined that idea are invisible and hidden from the other. So for the last point, number 6, one person's ideas cannot be perceived by another. So in this point, the idea of one individual are incomprehensible to another aside from all these assumptions. Locke asserted what appeared to be common sense when he claimed that there is no natural connection between sound and idea. So in this relationship between word and idea is arbitrary. Next slide, please. Okay, so it is the last part. We will continue it to the conclusion, which is number 6. So in conclusion, in the world of science, philosophy is one of the oldest science. So philosophy is a semantic worldview. The other hand, language is a tool of communication. By using a language, people can share feeling, thought, ideas, knowledge, and information to each other. In general, philosophy of language is a philosophical that discuss about the nature of language, the structure of language, its origin and meanings, language use, relationship between language and truth, thought, and world. In philosophy of language, we study about thought, communication, and understanding. There are some basic terms in the philosophy of language such as term, subjects, predicate, meaning, concept, referent, intention, extension, context, and truth value. So this is all of our presentation. Thank you for your pay attention.